we're here today to ask our lawmakers to end the state grocery tax quickly and responsibly. This is the year to finally untax groceries once and for all.
2023 brought a huge victory for Alabama Arise members and for every Alabamian when legislators voted unanimously to reduce the state grocery tax by half. The state sales tax on groceries dropped from 4% to 3% on September 1st, 2023, bringing immediate help for families across Alabama. And the law ensures another reduction to 2% will occur in a future year. After decades of determined advocacy by Arise members, the grocery tax reduction was cause for celebration.
People came out, they showed their support and their desire to see this happen in 2023. And that momentum and that, outpouring of support really made a difference.
As we continue pushing to eliminate the state sales tax on groceries, Akeisha stressed it's important for people to not give up on the issue and to continue letting their elected officials know how important this is.
And so I am extremely excited about what will come in the future with regard to people being more activated with regard to issues like this. I think that it's easy to get discouraged when an issue takes a long time to, get over the finish line. But we saw that even though it has taken a while, we were able to get over the finish line. And so people need to know that their voices matter, that their input matters, and that them showing up and really telling their legislators that this is a priority for them and that it needs to be a priority for those elected officials as well does make a difference.
To appreciate the significance of the grocery tax reduction, it's important to understand how our state got in this situation in the first place. Arise senior policy analyst Carol Gunlock explained that Alabama's constitution largely ties the legislature's hands on income taxes and property taxes, so our state relies more heavily than most on the sales tax.
And that alternatives to the sales tax require amendments to the Constitution, which are very difficult to get passed.
The ongoing fight picked up steam in recent years with our 2023 Legislative Day, which focused on untaxing groceries, becoming one of our highest ever attended events.
So let me tell you that it's actually a little bit nostalgic for me to stand here with Alabama Arise. I stood here many years with former Representative John Knight, who sponsored the first pieces of legislation to remove sales tax from groceries. But also, I worked for Alabama Arise, doing exactly what you're doing right now. So I want to thank you all for coming to the people's house, to let folks know what we are doing here and why we should remove sales tax from groceries.
Former State Representative John Knight was a longtime champion for untaxing groceries during his 25 years of service in the legislature.
Well, at that particular time, I'd gotten elected to the Alabama legislature, and I ran into a gentleman by the name of Kimball Forrester. And we started talking about the various programs and things that take place within the legislative process. And I was very interested in the things that he was doing, so I agreed as a member of the legislature to work with him on the legislation that would be presented or that they were interested in.
Knight said he brought the legislation year after year in an attempt to show how important it was. The biggest hurdle, he and others have said, was how to replace the revenue that the sales tax on groceries provides.
That made it difficult because the money coming from the tax on food goes to the education budget. So that made it difficult for educators to vote for it.
Arise Communications Director Chris Sanders said that while replacing education revenue was always a challenge while working to untax groceries, the two goals are not at odds.
Alabama does not have to choose between untaxing groceries and funding our public schools. We can, and we should, and we will do both.
Untaxing groceries will be accomplished in a three-step process. First, the state sales tax on groceries was reduced from 4% to 3% in 2023. Next, the state grocery tax will decline to 2% in the next year when revenues in the Education Trust Fund increase by at least 3.5%. And finally, a commission will look at ways to continue reducing the state sales tax without hurting funding for public schools.
There's still a lot of work to be done. We have just started.
So we're kind of taking an incremental approach, doing what we can do, trying to phase it down, and then once people start seeing that relief, I think the snowball is going to start rolling down the hill.
Legislators created a grocery tax commission to explore ways to continue to cut the state sales tax on groceries. Through Akeisha, Arise was able to have a seat at the table and continue to bring our members' concerns to their elected officials.
I am really appreciative of how aligned we are in terms of goals and how little dissension there is about the need to further cut the grocery tax to help everyday Alabamians. Although there has been conversation during each of the commission meetings about how to cut the grocery tax, those have been very fruitful conversations. There has not been a lot of disagreement about the fact that, we need to come up with creative solutions to be able to cut that remaining 2 cents while also simultaneously protecting the ETF.
Before the 2023 legislation, Alabama was one of only 3 states that still had no tax break on groceries. A key factor that finally led to our state being removed from that list was a mutual effort from both sides of the political aisle.
The senators here work with the lawmakers. I would love for this to be a bipartisan bill, and so I do want to work closely with the legislators and with the senators and hoping that we can find a solution where we can come together, because this is not a Democratic issue, it's not a Republican issue, it's a people's issue.
One of the things that I think fueled it, and I'm thinking about one of our members in particular, Mobile, who was feeling just a little bit deflated going into actually the session last year until she attended our annual meeting and heard the bill sponsors on the Senate side, a Republican senator and a Democratic representative, both coming together and talking about this issue. And she left that meeting feeling like, I'm uplifted and encouraged that when the issue is important enough, we can get people together to work towards something.
For Knight, he hopes the grocery tax reduction paves the way for even more improvements to Alabama's upside-down tax system.
And I think once that happens, I think that you will see tremendous progress being made in Alabama in a very progressive manner that's being fair to everybody. I'm not talking about taking advantage of big corporations and things of that nature. I'm just talking about fairness. I'm talking about an opportunity for average working families that want to reside in this state, an opportunity for them to have a decent style of life.
Groceries are a huge portion of a family's budget, and it's something you can't do without very well. And so we may not have to be choosing between medicine or school clothes for the kids or groceries. Make it easier.
The grocery tax reduction has made a meaningful difference for people across our state. Alabama Arise wants to give a big thank you to our members and supporters who have fought for this legislation for years and have shown up repeatedly to speak up for a brighter future.
Our members have been passionate and persistent and consistent in their calls for untaxing groceries. Our staff members do their part by creating fact sheets and action alerts to keep folks informed. We hold community meetings to build support and work with the reporters to generate media coverage, but our members are the ones who make it happen. They turn out in force to advocate for change. They call and email legislators, they get their friends and neighbors engaged, and they come to events like our annual legislative day to show the passion and the moral clarity behind our mission to untax groceries in Alabama. Arise's members get results, and we're not done yet. We're just getting started. We're going to finish the job of ending the state grocery tax once and for all, and we're going to continue our work to build a better, more inclusive Alabama for everyone together.